This is episode 26 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. My guest today is Daniel Kong on the island of Oahu in Hawaii. Daniel, how are you?
How's it going, guys? Doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jonathan. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I noticed you from social media. Obviously, I'm on social media a lot and I look for investors on there. Saw what you were doing and saw that you were pretty new to the space. How long have you actually been actively investing in real estate?
About 4 years now. I think it's almost 4 years. Yeah, just about 4 years investing.
So growing up, was real estate something you were interested in, or did it kind of all happen 4 years ago when you kind of got the bug for real estate, or was it a book? How did you get into it?
It's kind of crazy. It's actually like I had like zero real estate experience up to that point. I was working as a software developer like the majority of my life, and then like long story short, somebody gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad, where I think like a lot of people, and then it like literally like blew my mind. Like that, I mean, I was happy. I was working. I had like a decent salary. Like I lived in Hawaii, so I thought there was no way I would ever afford a house. Like not, I like absolutely no like I mean, yeah, just like knew absolutely nothing about real estate. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and just like my mind opened to this whole world of like this. I just the concept of passive income. Like I never even like considered the concept of passive income before, but like the whole concept of passive income, that's kind of like what started like the whole journey of like the real estate investing and like this whole like
Yeah. Did it strike you because it was a way out of like a 9 to 5 job, or was it something about just acquiring assets and being able to use them the way you want to produce that future passive income?
I think that's the idea of financial freedom, of just being able to like have a salary but actually not have to work at it. And I actually liked my job as a software developer. I had a lot of flexibility and like I could work with like my own hours and things. But the whole idea of like, hey, I can build something and just have complete like I could basically do whatever I want and not even work, and I still be able to like support myself and my family. That to me, that was like a huge, just like eye-opening moment for me when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah. Why did somebody give you the book though? That's what I'm curious to know, because I think that's where it really lies for a lot of people. Like, what was it that somebody thought that you might get out of it at that time?
It was just a random person, like a random friend. This was like, hey, I was like, yeah, I always enjoy reading. I think like reading and learning. I think that's something that I just naturally like to do. I was like, hey, I'm looking to like read a book. Do you have any suggestions? He's like, hey, try this book. Like it's well known. I was like, okay, like sure, like so it was like a random like act from like a random friend.
Yeah. Yeah, but like, I mean, good job by you to just want to go in and read it and then it completely change your life in just one read. Whereas a lot of people would just say, oh, you know what, that doesn't sound that interesting, but you gave it a try. What was it specific? Was it really the full passive? I like when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I read it, once every couple of years. I focus on either Rich Dad or Poor Dad, and I see the messages kind of in both. What was it inside the book that started to get you interested beyond just like the income? Because there's so many stories in there, I think, in terms of how you work ethic, growing up, what you're looking to do. What else inspired you to kind of move forward? And then we'll talk about how you got into your first properties.
I think that's maybe like two things. One was like the idea of assets and liabilities. Like literally I had like zero like financial education. So like all I knew was like, don't rack up credit card debt. Like that was like the only advice I had, like just like don't rack up credit card debt. And like I had zero else other than that. But just the idea of what an asset and a liability was, that was really huge. And then the thing where I think one of his key phrases is don't ask, I can, but how can I? And so that concept of like the Rich Dad Poor Dad, because I think I had the poor dad parents where like the get a job, get an education, and like of that. So like that was like the only world that I knew. And the fact that there was another world that existed beyond that was just like you peel back the curtains to like just what's possible, I think.
Yeah. That's awesome. So what was your first action step forward after you read the book to really get into it and then eventually to get to a property?
Actually, what's funny was like after I read the book, I was like, hey, I'm a software developer. I thought stocks and stock investing would be the way to build passive income and kind of like quit my job. So like I deep dove, I read a ton of books into just like the stock market and investing, how to create a passive investment portfolio that way. After all my research, it basically came down to like the conclusion that there's no way to safely invest unless you do index funds for like a long period of time. And so like from my conclusion, I figured like stocks was not the right path. And I started looking into the real estate investing, and then I found bigger pockets. I think I read the book by Brandon Turner, the book on rental property investing. That was like my
Yeah.
first my first like real estate book, and then from there I literally read like 3 or 4 books a week, just like on real estate investing. Listened to hundreds of hours of just podcasts, dove into the Bigger Pockets forums, and like that. Bigger Pockets was basically like my college degree in real estate investing that kind of got me started, like to kind of just launch me into my career. So.
Yeah, I mean, so many people that I talk to, so many friends that I have from Bigger Pockets say the same thing. When you got started, were you involved in the forums too, or you were someone who was just reading the books and kind of like lurking through the forums? I know for a lot of people, they just kind of like read forums and then one day they finally post and they're like, wow, there's a lot of people out here who are willing to help just for free, for fun.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a combination of both. I was like very heavy to just reading, listening. And then like when I was ready to start taking action, I started reaching out through the forums and making some friendships and getting some feedback. And I had like, it was kind of like back in the day, I want to say like the Hawaii community didn't have a really big, strong investor community. But then the forums was kind of like there was a way for me to connect with other investors when I had questions or needed some help or advice or even boots on the ground on the out of state investing. That was kind of like the tool that was available to me at that point in time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people thought like you did, like it's so expensive in Hawaii. How am I going to be able to invest here? And then it was really like, it was probably around 4 years ago when Brandon ended up moving to Hawaii, or 3 or 4 years ago. And then everybody started to go. And then a lot of people, including our former guest Zasha, developed some real estate meetups there, including yourself. And now it's really taken off. I think that you found like it's doable. Are all of your properties now in Hawaii?
No, I started out of state just because, like when I first started, obviously I had no real estate experience. I had no money to begin with, so
Yeah.
I thought Hawaii was like it was not an impossible market. It was like it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. It doesn't cash flow positive. There's the houses are $1 million. Like I'm never gonna be able to save money. Like I never thought I would own a home too. Like I was like I'm fine renting for the rest of my life. I just want to get some rentals and pay for my rent like in the future. That was kind of like my plan.
So
And so
yeah, so how did you get into a first property? Where was it, and where did the deal come from?
it's a being a kind of a nerd and a software developer. I'm big on like software and like running numbers. And so one of my first things I did was I wrote a script that scraped like a whole bunch of like turnkey websites online, and I compiled them into this database of like a price, a rent, and ran these formulas and found like the on certain markets on average they just cash flow better than other markets. And so from all my data I compiled, I was like, okay, I narrowed it down to maybe like 5 markets where it was like I think it was like Oklahoma City, Indianapolis, Kansas City, Memphis, a few things where on average the houses, just like the average turnkey houses, the cash flow like better on average. So if you're gonna use the BRRRR strategy, which was like a huge way where I thought I'd be able to like buy rentals, was
Yeah.
exit makes it a lot easier if the average thing cash flows, right? So like did some analysis, like basically settled on Indianapolis of all places to kind of start building my portfolio. And so that's where I kind of started as out of state. So
Yeah. So I think what a lot of people want to know when you go in out of state first, how were you able to build a funnel into Indianapolis so you felt comfortable with an agent, contractors if you needed? Did you do it through Bigger Pockets or other sources? Because I think that's where people can make big mistakes. And it doesn't seem like you did. So how did you get that going to start off?
a lot of it was the forums on Bigger Pockets. And so but I literally like I read David Green's book, the book on estate real estate investing.
It's a great book.
And I just followed the steps, like everything he said to do. I just whatever he said to do. Okay, reach out to realtors, look at Redfin, make these phone calls on property management, like do everything you need to do. I literally just followed whatever the book said. I just took it step by step and just took consistent action. But I think a lot of my contacts were from the Bigger Pockets forums and reaching out to like wholesalers, to agents, to property managers and things on that forum, just because like they're kind of like-minded, you know. And so
Yeah, I've found that you can the just making a post about it will teach you a lot because you can see who's coming in trying to get your business and who's there just to say like, I love when I get a recommendation from somebody for somebody else.
yeah.
So I know it's not. I don't like when people raise their own hand because I feel like that's too easy. But if you just search like Indianapolis, you can find a ton of stuff and then go through and then contact those people, see if it worked out for them. So what's the makeup of the first property you bought? Was it turnkey, ready to go, or did it need a little work?
I mean, like I had like to kind of like the backstory. I had no money to begin with, so like I mean, maybe like 10 grand, 20 grand saved in my bank account. There's no way for me to afford a property or a rental like anything. And I also want to scale it because Like I didn't just want to buy one property and finish. So like I was like, the burr strategy was like a huge like I guess like strategy that I was gonna use. So what I did was I had a decent job and a good credit score. So I went to like my local banks over here and I took out personal lines of credit. So a personal line of credit is like you can go to a local bank and say like the that you don't need to have any assets. You just show them like your pay stub and your credit score, and you can take out like 15 to like 30 grand in just like a line of personal line of credit. And so what I did was I went to like 5 banks, all like in the same like walking distance, and I applied and on the same day. So then when they asked me like, hey, do you have any other like debts? Like have no other debts. Like immediately my credit card it was like very low balance and paid off. So then I opened up like 20, 15, 30, 15, 20. So I got like 5 lines of credit. It's like equal to like over $100,000 of just lines of credit that I could pull. And that's what I used to like to purchase the first property, burn that out, and kind of like to get my snowball kind of going. So
Wow, awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, were those lines of credit that don't activate until you actually use the funds, or did you have to take the funds and start paying right away? Because that makes
yeah,
it a little bit more pressure.
just like you said in the beginning, it's like a line of credit. If you keep it there, like you're not paying any interest. When you have it, there's like a daily small balance that you're already going to pay, right? Whatever the daily balance. When you put it back in, you're not paying any interest again. So it's kind of like take it out, use it for your deal, then put it back, and you're only using what you need for that particular deal.
Well, what made you feel like you weren't going to be at risk of losing the money? Because I think some people do credit card situations instead of, lines of credit, and they make the mistake of going in too hard. What were you so confident about? Or maybe you weren't, but what made you know, like, oh, let me just take out 5 lines of credit. It's going to be okay.
Well, number one, like taking out the lines of credit, there's no risk until you actually use it. So just having access to the money and actually using it are two separate things. But then like to answer the point why the come through was just education, education, education. Just seeing like the like other guys like on Bigger Pockets or on these like podcasts who are actually doing it and hearing their stories, reading books and like talking to other investors on the forum just kind of gave me the confidence where I had the tools and the things that I needed. And then I just did a ton of like research and due diligence as far as like vetting out contractors or property managers or the different neighborhoods and agents. And so like the more like information that I got, the more like the risk I think goes down as far as just like vetting your team members and like that and the strategy.
Yeah. I feel like new investors who have that, like more of a high C on the disc test and are willing to do that due diligence, they feel much more comfortable when they finally make the steps. And then I feel like those are the investors like yourself who can scale a lot quicker because you kind of built your own strategy and made it comfortable for yourself. And then it was like, okay, now I have to make it fit within what I want. I really like what you did with the markets too. You used your expertise to help yourself invest. And I think a lot of people also forget, like they have another career, there's something in the other career that can help you be a better investor. And you started off by using your data. If you're scraping the data, it's a great way to know, and then you can match it up with what you read on BP, right?
I think, I mean, just being a software developer and just like a person in general, I'm very like analytical and logical. So just like numbers, very black and white. Does this make sense or this doesn't make sense? And so just looking through like data, I feel like that it gives you like a big picture of kind of what's going on. Obviously, there's some like nuances that data can't always like give you the full picture, but like the more data that you kind of like accumulate, the bigger and like the more like bigger picture or a clear picture that you can have, I guess, in whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So did you ever go on site to Indianapolis before you bought your first deal, or was it fully remote?
So we did two projects, Burr projects, and then I went to visit Indianapolis after that. So it was like
They were both rented when you went to visit?
yeah. Well, one was in under rehab, the other one was completed. So
And how did it feel though when you show up the first time? Did you feel like this was a great decision once you saw the actual properties and it became even more real? Like it's tangible when you can touch the property.
yeah, I mean, what's kind of weird is like I've grown up in Hawaii my whole life, so even the fact that there are homes that you can buy for like $50,000, like that was a complete shock for me too, because I'm like, you only know what you know, right? It's like to me, a house is $1 million. That's just what it is. I didn't think that you could buy a house for like 50,000, which is like could be like the price of a car. So it was like just seeing like the neighborhoods and like and this the style of homes is way different than what we see in Hawaii. It's just
Yeah.
it's kind of like it's just like a big shock to just like be in the city just to begin with, I think. But I mean, once I just like because like I seen pictures, my contractor, my project manager was sending me pictures and stuff. I already had it, and I talked to agents. I'm on Zillow, Street View, walking the streets already. I kind of had a good feel for the city even before it's put inside.
Yeah. So you did 2 burrs in Indianapolis. Do you still own those as rentals?
Yeah. So we actually that first year we did 6 burrs. So we
All in
did
Indianapolis?
all in Indianapolis. Yeah.
Wow, that's quick. Were you what was the how much rehab was needed on them?
The first one was like 30 grand, which is like insane for us in Hawaii, but it's like
Yeah.
dirt cheap. But then like it's yeah, it was like but at the time it was actually like really scary for me because no real
Compared
estate.
to the sales price, it's a lot though for what you were putting out and having the lines of credit, right?
Yeah, well the first purchase was $70,000 and then the rehab was 30. But then like it was very scary. I mean, like even just like wiring like 7 grand, like 70 grand, like I was very scared because this amount of money, right? And I hear whole stories about like people who are like they get scammed on wires or whatever. So like
Yeah,
I had to call like the the telecompany on separate lines just to make verify. Okay, is this legit? Is this legit? And so like anyone can make a fake website. You know, I was very like
absolutely.
just very scary for me to kind of like start that first deal, but like just doing like again, just doing more research and due diligence just makes you feel like more comfortable like to move forward. So
Yeah, that's a good point you brought up. I mean, we haven't talked about it over these first episodes, but just a PSA for new investors or anybody doing a real estate deal. Whenever you're going to send a wire, you always need to call the number and verify directly the account number. And you never use the phone number that's on the paper of the transaction. You have to go on the website, make sure that you're calling the correct person because they'll give you a different number on the website to verify. It's a great point, but it's good that you were thinking about that. Wire fraud is real, and it's you're not getting that money back if you get caught in it. Okay, so you did 6 burrs in Indianapolis. So what's in general? Let's just go with the first one: 70 buy-in, 30 renovation. When you did the burr and you refied out, what was the appraisal value of that first
it
one?
was 140 down.
Yeah, that's really great. Did that? So once you got that appraisal value of 140, was that like okay? I can keep doing this same thing. That's like a crystallizing moment to know that
It's
you
kind of like
quickly made 40 grand.
it was actually like a struggle for that because when I did the first appraisal, they appraised it at $70,000, and I was like, "There's no way this should be $70,000" because like I did my research and everything. I felt like a 135 was kind of like my ARV.
Yeah.
But then when I look at the comps that they use, one of the comps that they used was sold for like 60 grand. But then like it was on the market right now for 150 because it was another fix and flipper who bought it at a discount and then it was
Right.
yeah. There was another one, the same thing. It was like it was sold for like I think like 80, but was on the market for like 100. So like the comps they're using was it was just like way off. And then so I was like, dude, like that. So I was okay, like I'm gonna have to fight this. I feel like okay, I might have to go to another lender. Like this doesn't make sense, or whatever. So like, but I submitted a rebuttal, thinking like, hey, maybe if we can just get it up to like 120, maybe we'll try and do the cash out refinance. But miracles, credit to the dude for actually like actually changing like because that's a big difference for 70. But then he came back with like the new appraised value, and they came back at 140. So like that's like I'm like credit to the dude for waiting to admit his mistake, but then like the new appraised value came at 140. So like we actually had to fight for that first appraisal or that first refinance to kind of get that to get it refinanced out. But,
Yeah, that's another great tip though. I mean, I think that if you give appraisers the correct data and you identify which things they did wrong without making them feel bad, which is tough because they can get touchy. As long as you can, I've won almost all my appraisals, maybe like 90%. And the ones that I didn't challenge, I just knew I wasn't going to win. We were just hoping that we would. But that's another great point. It's another way to use data just to support your case. And you actually caught them maybe not paying attention because they were using a before repair value, for something that was already coming out. Awesome. So you finished 6 burrs in Indianapolis, and then where did you go next after that?
So at that point in time, I had a small team. It was efficient as running. I was like, hey, making like after the burst, the process, you making like $100 to $200 a door, like net after expenses and everything, right? And so like, I was okay. So I just need like 50 of these to reach like my 10,000 like a month. And so like my only constraint right there was like the 100 that I had like in play of like 2 weeks of that, right? Or like I actually took out like another loan against my 401k because you can take like a max like a 50 grand out of your 401k. So that was extra money that I had to kind of like keep rolling into these projects. But then I was like, hey, if I had a little bit more cash, instead of doing like, let's say 2 at a time, now I could do like 4 or 6 at a time to just I could reach that 50 number faster. And so at the same time that I was doing the burrs, I was also networking and learning in my local market. And like Hawaii is a great fix and flip market because there's high prices, but also high profit margins.
Yeah.
But then as far as cash flow, it's not the greatest like cash flow state. And so I was like, if I could just take the exact same thing I'm doing in Indianapolis, finding good deals, fixing them and selling them, maybe I could make some like active income in Hawaii, and this could feed the burr machine that I kind of had rolling inside of Indianapolis.
Yeah. So was property 7, was that in Hawaii?
Yeah, so that was in Hawaii. So like the Hawaii market is like it's very different than the Indianapolis market because like in Indianapolis there's like a ton of wholesalers, there's like deals slinging left and right.
Yeah.
But in Hawaii there's no wholesalers like really, and like there's very few and far between like deals, and just because the deals are bigger, like on $1 million property, you have to make at least like $100,000 profit in order to like for it to like the risk and for it to make sense, etc.
Yeah.
The amount of equity that your like homeowners are leaving on the table a lot of times when they need to sell it for the price that you have to buy it at, and for various other reasons like limited inventory and like people's view of land and property, there's a lot less available deals to be found in Hawaii. And so the first part of it was just trying to like probably the first 4 months was just trying to lock up that first deal like in Hawaii.
Yeah. So what did you end up buying? What was the price point of like that first flip in Hawaii?
First one was $360 I bought it for. And then
was it a single family or a condo?
It was a duplex. It was like it's this complicated ohana. It's
I know it is. Yeah.
Family.
One in the back. Yeah.
I mean, there's upstairs and downstairs, but it was own ohana. So like had separate entrances and everything. But
yeah. So how much rehab was needed on that one?
So that one we put in like $60,000 of like paint contractors and materials, but I did a lot of sweat equity. So like I basically like lived there for the next like 2 months. Like I just YouTube like construction, like try to do my own plan. It was terrible. Like a lot of the stuff was like I put in like my own like cabinets and counters. I bought like Formica, like like this like the from Home Depot. Like I was at Home Depot every day, just like so I did a lot of the work myself, thinking like that was how you had to do it. Like so lots
how
of
did that work out?
And I had like my dad. So my dad's a little I'm super unhandy, but like you can learn so much on YouTube. So there was this one guy, I forget what his name was. I think this Canadian dude that just has DIY like YouTube stuff. And so like like hundreds of hours of just learning like the different parts of the rehab parts. And then like I can do my flooring myself. Like there's a bunch of things in painting, things that like it doesn't take a whole lot of skill that you can just put in sweat equity. So combination of me, my brother-in-law who I paid, and then like my dad, like I did like, but also contractors at the same time. So it was a combination of contractors and myself. We got all the work kind of done for around $60,000 to fix it up.
Yeah. Do you feel like that was your first real like in-person learning experience as to how hard it was going to be?
Yeah, 100%. And like that. So the good thing is I had a job as a software developer. So I would just like do my work there while like during the day for like whatever, like a few hours or how many hours. Then the rest of the day or night, I just like working on the project myself. So it's a combination of W-2 and working on the rehab at the same location like that. Just because I had like could have the opportunity to do both. So
yeah, on a lot of prior podcasts, we've talked about kind of the right time to leave, but it's so important to keep the W-2 because that's what's funding what you're doing in addition to any like loan portals or lines of credit that you can get. And I feel like some new investors are so hopped up to leave, they want to leave, but have no savings. And then there's also no job. So how can you invest with none of that? It's technically possible, but you need to have some backing for yourself.
I 100% agree. And I know a lot of people will say like, just like burn the shifts, but I'm like the exact opposite. I think you should only leave once you're like super sure that you can be responsible enough to leave. And it's going to be more work and effort like during that time. But then like, that's like the way more responsible or safe way. And you also like get things like be able to refinance these properties or using your job and like income. There's a whole bunch of reasons why having a job at the same time is like a lot more of the safe way to, I think, like exit the W-2 or the reference.
Yes, absolutely. So how many have you done in Hawaii now?
A bunch. I mean, like probably maybe over 20. Like I'm kind of keeping last count. I mean, like a bunch and stuff like that.
Yeah. Are those all flips or do you have some holds in Hawaii now as well?
A bunch of holds and some flips. So that first deal ended up being a burr actually. So it was very lucky. So intending to try and get into flips, but then the exit strategy for that one actually ended up being a burr. So like the first deal was very lucky we got into burr, and actually the first couple we did, or like maybe the first the two out of the first three were actually burr properties that actually like really boosted our income as far as like our passive income and to get to our number.
Yeah. So are you working with partners on these deals, multiple or one, or what's the?
This, these are all myself. I mean, like in the only recently we started to partner with people, but in the beginning it was just myself. I mean, we had a hard money lender to help fund the deal, and then we raised some private money from some friends and family to kind of fund the gap difference. But then other than that, it was just like myself and like
Yeah. Did you feel that it became easier to go to your family and friends at some point because you had built up a few, you had, you built up a few deals where you made money. So it's easier to go to family and friends and say, no, I already have a track record as opposed to doing it like right away.
100%. When I first started, my friends and family were like, dude, what are you doing? Like buying these properties on the mainland? Like you're gonna lose your butt, right? I bought one and then I was like, I think like a month later I bought the second one. And they're like, dude, what are you doing? Like everyone was like very shocked and like all my like a lot of friends were like kind of dissuade me, like saying like you better like be careful, like what are you trying to do? Like, and so and my coworkers are the same too. I was telling my coworkers, they're like, dude, you're crazy. But it's funny because once I had the success, like now my coworkers and my family who were in the beginning very anti, now they're lending on my deals and they want to learn and they want to partner and like be a part of like the once you have a track record, I think it makes a big difference than when you were first starting. So
Yeah, I think that's really important to note. I think too many investors are asking people for money right away, but why would somebody give you money on the first deal? They have no idea if you're going to do it. Then you do six in Indianapolis and you say like, well, now I want to do it here. At least you have a metric. Like, I know what I'm doing. Here's all the metrics of these six deals that I did. And then when you do it, like you said, on the mainland, they're going to start to see like, okay, this is possible. Because a lot of them probably thought like you did, you can't do it. It's the prices are too high in Hawaii or there's no spread. It's just a different type of thing. You have to buy in higher usually, but your profit margin is going to be bigger if you do it right.
yeah, no, definitely, 100%.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's get into some of our questions. We did talk about this already, but your greatest influence in real estate, bigger pockets, and the books. What I think when you started to go through the books, you were just like consuming so many. What was it about it? Was it just did you want to learn everything you could about real estate so you had multiple options when you started to kind of get into buying?
I think it's kind of like my personality where like I'm kind of like an all or nothing guy. Like whenever I dive into something, whether it's like a video game or a sport or like a hobby, I'm just like I dream about it day and night. I just think about it like all the time. So like it's like a 24/7 obsession, I think. And so like when I found like just like real estate investing, it was like I just was like super hungry just to like learn, and just kind of consume as much as I could. And like it just like literally like, dream about it, think about it, like when even when I'm working as my software developer, I'm just like thinking about like what can I do here or there, and just trying to like consume or listen to podcasts every single like on other rides and everything. So it was just like a became kind of an obsession to kind of like learn and to kind of like grow as an investor.
Yeah, I mean, I find podcasts to be so like great. I started listening to them always when I was in the car, and then if you drive a lot for work, you can get in like a ton of learning. I mean, if you're just 2 hour commute, which a ton of people have, you can have 2 hours more of learning. You can really learn a lot about real estate investing quickly and all different points of view. When you listen to Bigger Pockets podcast, there's just so many different things that can come to you that you can figure out, and some stuff you're going to bookmark for later, like apartment buildings and things like that. But I still find almost every episode is going to be useful to somebody.
Yeah, definitely. And then just like when I'm cleaning my house, any chance I get, I'm always listening to something or an audiobook or something. But like, and I'm also like a very fast reader, so I think I'm a pretty fast, like I can consume like the books very quickly. But yeah, in the beginning, I just was just kind of like went into it like 100% to just learn and to just be more comfortable.
Yeah, so as you got into it more, I know that you've gone to a ton of meetups and events. What kind of impact have those had? Because I think some people kind of stay behind the computer a lot, and that can be good. You can learn a ton in the forums, but I've seen, we're connected on social media. I've seen you at events. How much has that changed your perspective to kind of network with people who are doing what you want to do?
I think like one of my only small regret was that I didn't start going on and networking earlier. Just because I think there's a value to kind of figuring out yourself as far as just like you saw the problems, you kind of go through like the bumps and the bruises, but like the network there's a bunch of different reasons why networking is awesome. Number one is like inspiration and motivation. Like when you're around talking to other guys, you see what guys are accomplishing, it just motivates you, inspires you to do more. Another thing is just like mindset. Like they say you're like the average of the five people you hang around with, right? So like when was a software developer, my whole goal was like, hey, if I can just make six figures, I made it in life. Like, you know,
Yeah.
as, nothing against my friends, but like everybody was working at W-2 and like nobody was like really making a whole lot of income. And so like compared to my friends, I was doing very well. But then now when I'm going to these meetups and talking to these guys who are making $100,000 a month, now just my mind of what's possible and like what's like available, like and like reasonable is like it's totally different today. And so
Yeah.
mindset, and then like resources, like, you know, someone needs money, someone has deals, someone has a connection to like a contact. There's so many like resources that are exchanged, and like we all have different skill sets or different weaknesses, and kind of bringing to the table and helping each other out. It just makes everybody like everybody rise together like on the tide, you know. So
Yeah, I feel like going to events and then meeting investors really takes away the mystery. And I've found that like investors are literally everybody. So
yeah,
when you're a new investor, you think like, oh, it's going to be like all fancy people investing. And then you get there and it's like, no, nobody cares. Everybody wears shorts. Nobody, you know, it's like everyone. And I think that's what makes it so encompassing. Like you said, to know like you're going to see people just like you and people who you didn't think would be a quote investor. And then you realize, wait, no, everybody can be an investor.
and it's funny because I mean this might come across. I'm not sure how this is going to come across, but like when I go to these meetups, you see like very very successful people, and they're not super smart. There's no wow factor. They're just like, I just follow the path and I just work hard and like boom, like there's super super successful. And
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, you don't need to have multiple degrees to be a successful investor. You just need to be able to follow a plan, be consistent, and take action. You know, and it's really you can have no degree and do really well at investing. You just have to make the right moves, make the right connections, and probably
yes.
be an asset to people is what's going to get you the farthest, you know, with who you meet. It's a great point.
I mean, it just like it kind of like changes. I was like, if this guy can do it, like why can't I? Kind of basically, you know, it changes like your mindset of what you think like you can achieve when you see like normal, ordinary people just accomplishing like crazy things. And so,
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. It takes it off. It's like there's not like a ton of celebrity investors. And if there were, I don't think most of us would be interested, you know, because it's like that's not the showy part's not really the interesting part. It's getting it done and how you get to the passivity part, or at least in terms of like passive income, even though I don't find real estate investing to be super passive. The income's coming in, what they call mailbox money. That's what everybody's after. At some point, are you still doing the software development or have you left the job?
So in 2021, actually, like in the beginning or in the middle of the year, we built up enough rental income. We had a lot of luck, kind of lucky, like high cash flowing properties in Hawaii that we burned, where I would replace my six-figure income with just net passive income. And so like,
Yeah.
it was like, I mean, so we replaced my income at my W-2, and then I was like, I'm ready to like, let's just do this full time. But then my wife was not super like comfortable with that. So like it took a little bit more convincing and negotiating with her. But once she was on board, then like at the end of 2021, I quit my job and then just like been doing real estate investing like full time ever since.
Yeah, but that's important. I mean, I think if you have a spouse or partner, you want to make sure you're all on the same page because your future's tied together. So it's like you want to figure out and also prove to your wife, like, no, this is real. I can do that. Has her interest in real estate also changed over this time?
Yeah,
Or she's
definitely.
just like, Daniel, you just do your thing, bring it home.
When we first started, she was one like super anti, like do not invest in real estate. So it was a big negotiation for that first deal to kind of to negotiate with her to make sure it was okay.
Yeah.
And then over time, as she's seen success, and she's actually even like she helps out here and there. So like I taught her like, hey, like that first project, hey, can you help me with flooring? Can you help me with like painting or like installing cabin house and everything? So she's had like kind of an active part in a few of the rehabs, like putting in some sweat equity. But then she also is like she has her own career and she wanted to focus on her own career, and so like she doesn't want to like take away too much of the focus away from that. But I think like one of the good pieces of advice that I got when we were in our premarital counseling that I still like remember and use in our investing journey was that my pastor told me that, hey Don, you're gonna come to these times when it's gonna make the absolute sense to make this financial decision, and you're gonna make a lot of money, but your wife's not gonna be on board. You cannot make a decision. You just have to choose to like let that opportunity go, and then only if your wife is on board can you make a decision. And I feel like there was a couple of times in our career where I was like, I really wanted to do this thing, but just like listening to my pastor's advice, it was like the right decision to make, because if you're not kind of on the same page, it's like going to cause like friction and things in the future. And even if it ends up turning well financially, the relational strain or things like sometimes it's not worth it. So just be on the same page, and you're going to give up opportunities. Maybe you'll save yourself from some headache down from certain situations, but you always have to be as like a unified front in like big decisions that you guys are making.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, and that's something I think you can bring with you to just, money partnerships. When you're partnering with somebody else, you always want to be on the same page, or else it's going to be a problem later. I flipped with my best friend. We pretty much don't agree on everything, but we also know, like, we both know what we're doing. So it's not that big a deal. It's not like we're deciding to knock down half of a house or not. We pretty much agree on the big stuff, but you can take those lessons from what you learned in those relationship building for your marriage and then take them over to real estate as well. I think that's very, very smart. So we talked about Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Burr, but you said something interesting. And I have one thing that we could collectively do together to make the real estate investing world better. You talked about it a little, but it's helping out each other as much as possible. And I feel like you do that on your social. You're trying to give people insight into what you did within 4 years to do it. How has that kind of helped you grow on your journey to help other people along the way as well?
It's really crazy, because I think when I first started, like there was maybe when I first started, I had a few bad experiences, like as a new B investor, where some seasoned investors were kind of like assholes or like kind of dick to me, and so like that.
Yeah.
From those experiences, I was like, hey, I don't ever want to be like that to like a new investor because of that. And so like whenever new people come and ask questions, I try my best to give them time or give them advice within reason, And so it's funny, but like I never expected to get anything back from like a lot of those early interactions, but years later it comes back, and because of that, they'll bring me a deal, or they'll bring me a contact or money, or they're coming in to give me a good reference with somebody else. And it's kind of like weird how like this the law of the universe works, where you give it, you just put it out there and try to serve as many people, and then like naturally, like not even expecting something to come back out. It's just like in the future, you kind of actually get rewarded for that. And so it's just kind of cool that that's happening. But like I didn't realize how powerful that was back then. But now that I see how powerful it is, it just makes me want to do more and give more, like in the future, both because I enjoy giving, but also just because like I see the benefit in the long term too. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that that's a light bulb moment for new investors listening. You just have to give of your time. If you have things that you've done in the past that can help an investor, bring that to the table if you want mentorship, and if you build relationships. I always say the investing world is much smaller than people think. It seems like there's a million investors, but most of them fail. So the ones who succeed you're all going to end up knowing each other. So you don't want to kind of mess up those relationships along the way. Like you said, it doesn't help for someone to be rude to you when you're trying to get started. But like you also said, there's ways where if you want to approach someone, you need to come to the table with something, because people are busy.
Yeah.
Awesome. So if you had one piece of advice for brand new real estate investors in this market, like the current economic climate now going into 2023, what advice would you give to new investors based on what you've experienced over the last 4 years?
I think based on like just based on the market and just from like what I've seen, I think it's very important to be very conservative with your numbers, and hopefully like partner with another experienced investor. I think having a second set of eyes on your deal, just to make sure that like you're not going to get yourself into trouble or see the hiccups on the road that they can predict that you might not be able to see, I think. And so just, especially in today's market where I've seen a lot of friends or newer investors come into the space and not necessarily make the greatest decisions as far as like running their numbers. And now when the market is going up, you can kind of like, it'll fudge your numbers because you'll still make money because of the market saves you. But now when the market is dipping, it's actually going to even hurt you further. And so I've seen some guys get into some bad deals where it looks like they might lose money. And if they just had like a hand like holding them or partnering with them in the beginning, they could have avoided like a lot of this like stress that they're kind of feeling right now.
Yeah, it's great, and more reason to find those in-person meetups in your area to get one-to-one with people so you can really tell more who you can trust in person. Yeah. Great. Daniel, it's been a pleasure. Where is the best place for people to find you? I know you're active on Instagram and TikTok. Why don't you give everybody your tags on those, your at?
Yeah, I'm Daniel Kong 808 at Instagram and TikTok. So like feel free to reach out and shoot me a DM. And if you got questions or things, I'm always available to kind of like point you in the right direction or kind of give you some advice, like the best of my ability. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on. It was great to meet you, and I look forward to staying in touch with you.
yeah, same. Thanks for having me on, Jonathan.
Yeah, absolutely. That was Daniel Kong, and I am Jonathan Green. This has been episode 26 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. We'll see you next week.